Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go back to the advertising question. And I'm just curious. I'm just thinking out loud. So advertising, I get it. You can advertise whatever, but at the end of the day, this is a Schedule I drug that's illegal under federal law. So can I go and advertise that I'm going to kill someone for you for cheap? I'm a cheap guy on the block. Can I do that?
No. So under strict scrutiny, one of the first questions is whether something's legal. This has been actually kind of tested out by courts in other jurisdictions. So we do know that, so you have a federal First Amendment right to freedom of speech, and then you also have a state constitutional right to freedom of speech. So because marijuana is still illegal as a Schedule I narcotic under federal law, if you were to sue under federal law rules, so if you were to sue in federal court, then those types of protections would be upheld. However, if someone were to file a state law claim under state law, because it is legal under state law, you would likely have difficulty winning on that claim, because technically it's not illegal under state law. And there have been some indications in other circuits that that's possibly the case. So, although the Montana Supreme Court did
Sounds like a definite maybe. I don't know what that means.
It's an undecided. It hasn't been decided yet. We anticipate. It's kind of interesting because people are curious as to why some of these cases haven't been brought up in some jurisdictions where there are clearly constitutionally shaky restrictions on speech, and there are a number of different hypotheses as to why that is, and it may just be that people are so eager to enter the legal market that they're not willing to contest it at this point. There's some speculation that as people get more comfortable, these challenges are more likely to arise. Of course, with the city attorney's office, I think we always tend to err on the side of caution and not inviting lawsuits. So these are some, though, undetermined grounds, but the constitutional law provisions are fairly strong and have been thought out. And I think it's still, even though under federal law, they would not have a solid challenge, I think under state law, that I don't think it's as clear.
Okay, thank you. And then on this side of the room, in 2011, when we prohibited the marijuana in this city, was that a council action or was that an initiative?
That matter was studied by a public safety subcommittee that Councilmember Aguilar was on with a recommendation to City Council, and that prohibition was adopted by ordinance by the City Council. It was not put to a vote.
Okay. So, to staff, so how did we get to the proposed staffing model that we need? I mean, normally, we look at an impact, I'm guessing. I'm not sure if there was an impact study done where we look at the impact and then go work backwards and go, how do we mitigate everything? How do we get to that staffing? Because I look at the Colorado, and the city attorney mentioned their staffing. Just on the legal side, they have 17 attorneys. Just on the criminal side, if I saw this correctly, in a total of 34. And you look at their staffing, and it's huge. So what it scares me a little bit is I think we're going in a little thin. So the question is, how do we get to that number?
So what we did was we talked to other cities and states. And again, when I started on that slide, I mentioned that they cautioned us, start small and figure out what you need. Don't come in with a high number of staff. And again, because again, you're tying up those one-time monies for ongoing costs, and you're going to get yourself into some trouble. So they said,
Excuse me, Kelly, can you go back to that slide while we're talking about this?
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. So we went with the experience of some other cities and just said, what would you recommend we start with, or what did you start with? And I will not use Aurora as an example there because they had a very large amount of staff before they started into this process. Again, a little more affluent than our city would be. Their tax revenue certainly much higher than what we see here. And so by just looking at what we've heard from other cities and trying to take that precaution up front and saying, okay, we don't want to add a whole bunch of staff and then find out, what we've been hearing is think about hourly staff or contract staff to help you set up your regulations and set up your auditing and your compliance and your ordinances and things like that, and then have your internal staff review those things, work with them, and evaluate as you go. If you ask probably every department, they'd say, well, I may need, a lot more than that. We don't know that until we get into this and look at the legal and illegal. All we know right now is for our illegal businesses that, and we've talked to the city attorney staff, that they know they would at least need one criminal prosecution attorney, one paralegal, and one support staff. Code enforcement said they would probably need one staff. I spoke to Justin in the fire department, and he said, probably if we do permit this, that they would need at least one more fire inspector. So these are not set in stone. These are certainly, there's a lot of unknowns out there. So we just looked at a conservative base. Correct.
So I look at this, and in talking to, I'd like to get the police chief up here, because I got some questions as well. And there's something we can't talk in public at what it takes to close these folks down. But the number I see here, the minimum requirement to start closing these folks, and I want to talk about that because I don't think we want to talk about that here. That doesn't even get close to what we need to even begin the process. And so this is flawed. And so I'd like to see what our experts have to say as to what we really kind of need. I mean, when we talk about other things with regards to, let's say, one issue that I was very passionate about was the towing incident way back. And this was, I kind of pointed the finger at the police chief, but now I'm going to give it back to her, is the cost recovery. I mean, in that cost recovery, we charge those poor people everything under the sun. I mean, even the shoe polish. And so forgive me, but now on the other hand, when we're talking about monies coming back to us rather than the business owner, now we're looking at, well, maybe we don't need full cost recovery. And so I don't want to be...
I will tell you, that's not what I would recommend at all. I'm just saying that we don't know. It's uncertain.
Right. So I think what I want to do, what I would like to do, is, and I know we're not that part of here, is do an impact study so we can work that backwards and say, okay, what's it really going to cost us? Because this right here, I apologize, I'm very passionate about the marijuana thing in my district because it affects my district. So if I, get up in your face, I apologize. It's just that really passionate about this. So I would like to ask the police chief of what she thinks this department needs as a public safety expert.
Well, of course, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to introduce, this is Sergeant Mike Barga. He is in charge of our Special Investigations Unit. So he deals with all the dispensaries and all the issues related and surrounding the regulations and some of the issues. He's had a lot of opportunity to talk to a lot of other organizations in regards to how they're dealing with the issues. So in reality, he's really the expert, much more so than I am. But what I want to talk about is from my perspective of public safety, and that is my significant concern right now. And I'm not here to debate marijuana, and I've said that many times before the council. I realize that's the strong possibility that we're moving in that direction. But as we are the lowest staffed department in San Diego County, and we've already had this discussion, and you've heard some of the challenges that we face, my concerns are related to these types of businesses and the potential for problems. I can tell you that when I went to Aurora, when the officer spoke in front of the city manager and many of the officials there was a different tone than when we stepped off to the side and had a conversation. You have to keep in mind that in Aurora, they have almost 2 officers per 1,000, and I know that a lot of people don't believe in that ratio, but in comparison to the issues and the problems that we're facing in our community, and our response times and the lack of ability for proactivity, and the numbers of homeless that are moving into our community and the issues that we face with regulating these types of businesses, I would rather be prepared for those issues than take a stance of, we're not really sure because we don't know. I can tell you we're 7 miles from the border. We deal with these issues, and I'll let Sergeant Vargas speak a little bit more to that, but we are dealing with so many of the issues here in our community right now. Right now, I believe the number is 13 of these illegal dispensaries. There's nothing to indicate to us that they're not going to continue. When you work on problems, there will be a level of them dispersing somewhat. We'll reduce the number, but will we be able to reduce all the illegal dispensaries? One officer to be able to focus on these issues, yes, I'll be thankful to have someone. I'll be thankful to be able to add any additional staffing. But I really think that we looked at a very high number when we provided information to city staff on what we thought we needed. A lot of it had to do with the education and the youth, the concerns for youth and educating them. Well, who educates youth in our community? It's our school resource officers. They have the closest connection to the youth in our community, and they have the most impact in making sure that they set the right message and the right tone with these young children. So that was one of my concerns, was to be able to have additional school resource officers that could focus on that. The other area of concern was our homeless outreach team. Right now, we only have 2 members on the homeless outreach team, as well as a sergeant who oversees them. They focus on the entire city of 52 square miles. They only work 4 days per week, so they can't focus on things on a regular basis as much as we would like them to. We anticipate that there will be an increase in the homeless population based upon the information from Aurora and other the cities that we have focused on. All you have to do is walk the streets of Chula Vista right now to see that homelessness in itself has increased. Besides the fact that I think that our Special Investigations Unit focuses on these issues, they are the experts. They're the ones who know all the details around and associated with all the avenues that people will go down when they're looking at things from a black market perspective. So I think that he can give you a better perspective on it, but I'm concerned that we regulate these types of, any type of police-regulated businesses goes through our Special Investigations Unit. My concern is to have somebody from the outside come in and do that. They might not have all the information that we have. So I just don't want to miss anything as your chief of police, and the concern is for this community and the safety of this community. We want to continue to have Chula Vista be one of the safest cities, and we just want to make sure all those safety measures are in place. So we hope that you will continue to look at that, and I'll let Sergeant Vargas speak to any questions that you may have in regards to the concerns.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
So I think the question was, is 2 police officers enough?
Right now I have a unit.
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. I'll explain kind of what my unit does and how we're staffed. Right now I have myself and 3 in-house detectives. Our duties are very varied. We work on everything from human trafficking to issues with cartel and criminal intelligence. I have 1 detective that's currently assigned to all police licensing issues in the city. That includes licensing of massage parlors, gun dealers, and all the alcohol establishments, of over which we have 300. So that individual is very busy. When needed, I can try to pull from other detectives to help conduct inspections, whether it's massage parlors, spas, or our gun dealers, or any of the problematic ABC establishments. But it takes a long time. And what we've found, just from talking to, for example, the Sheriff's Department here in our county, trying to regulate even the legal dispensaries takes a great amount of resources, because not only are you going into the dispensary to look at what they have in there, but you have to track back where that marijuana comes from, where their product comes from. So you have to follow that back to the growers, and the growers are spread out throughout the county. So sheriff's deputies are actually tasked with going out to these growers and making sure that the growers' books are the same as the books that the retailers have, matching up those books, looking at the barcodes, and making sure that the product is the same that's being sold. Because there's a lot of potential for the black market operations, even if we do legalize, because the product can be manufactured for such a cheap amount, and the profit margin is so great that even if we do legalize, I strongly feel that there's still going to be a significant black market opportunity for that. So in short, to answer your question, sir, we need significant increase in staffing.
Thank you. I think I only had maybe one more. I'm sorry it took it so long, but I got maybe two.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Padilla.